Hey friends, Josh here, and I want to talk about theological triage. Theological triage is a term that I first heard from Al Mohler of Southern Seminary to describe what Christians have needed to do for hundreds of years, since the very beginning, which is as we read the Bible and we discover various truths about God and salvation and all the various areas of life, how do we determine which ones are essential to Christianity, which ones are really important for church life, and which ones really, while important, you can disagree and still be in good Christian fellowship. You can still be considered a Christian. And so determining that all Scripture and everything it teaches is important, but it's not all equally important. And even the Scriptures itself talk about that. Paul talks in 1 Corinthians 15 about matters of first importance, that there are certain things that must be prioritized. You have to have these or you're not a Christian. But what do we do with all the other stuff? And we as American Christians tend to go, if it's not essential, then it's entirely unimportant. And that's just not true. The Bible has layers to it. The bike has different gears on it, and those gears do different things. So triage comes from the medical field. If a medic in the middle of a battlefield is out there treating wounded soldiers, he has to triage, he has to decide which wounds require his most immediate attention. So if someone has a broken finger, that's important, that needs to be addressed, but it's not as of equal importance as the one who has blood gushing out of their neck. He needs to give attention to the most serious things, give his primary attention to the most serious things, and then work his way down as he's able to less important things. And so that's what we want to do, is what are the immediate life and death doctrines? What are the things that really do define Christianity? And what are the things that really important but have lesser influence? So the first that we talk about is tier one issues or essentials of the Christian faith. These are the kinds of things that if you miss on these, you're not a Christian. These are essentials. This is the core that is absolutely critical to being a Christian. This is central to Christianity, core doctrines. This is things like God exists. This is things like the nature of the Trinity. This is salvation by grace alone through faith alone. This is the deity and humanity of Christ, that if you miss on any of those, you don't have Christianity anymore. So a person really has to be right on these things to be considered a Christian. These are non-negotiables. Then there's tier two. Tier two is one step down. You could have differences among true Christians and still have true Christians. But the important thing about tier two issues is they protect the tier one issues. So it's not unimportant. Often if we get these wrong in tier two, that will have implications down the line for tier one. They're not tier one, but they have implications for tier one. And tier two issues are really important truths that are essential, particularly for fellowship and mission. So this is where you get denominations, because a tier two issue is like baptism. Will you baptize babies or won't you? And what does it mean? Well, you could disagree and still be Christians, but your church has to decide. They have to pick a lane. You can't do both. You have to believe and practice one and reject the other. It's a 1 or a 0. And so those are tier two issues. They really are important, and you have to have agreement on them if you're going to have a church or a fellowship. Another example might be women's ordination. Will you have women serving as pastors or will you not? You have to pick. You either will or you won't, and that will determine the shape of your fellowship. And so these are important. They're not unimportant. We can't act like they don't matter, because they really do. They really do define our discipleship going forward. And then there's tier three issues. These are the kinds of things where you really do need to come to a conviction on, but you can actually be in the same church. You can go on the same mission trips. You can do a lot of the same things together, because it doesn't actually affect fellowship, and it doesn't define what is and isn't a Christian. It's important. It will have personal convictions. It'll have differences. There'll be important things on those lines, but that's not essential to Christianity. It's not essential to Christian fellowship, and so it's really important that we hold those rightly. Those would be just personal convictions. That might be someone's personal conviction on alcohol, or whether or not to watch these movies or take these kinds of substances. It might also relate to end times things, particulars about the end times of What is the mark of the beast? Is there even a mark of the beast? What does that mean? Should we interpret this spiritually or literally? Is there a rapture? What exactly is being described in the millennium? Spiritual gifts could fall into this category. Do you believe in speaking in tongues or do you don't? I think you can be in the same church and hold those convictions and even hold them strongly, but still have liberty within the church to believe those things. They're not necessarily essential to fellowship. So what happens, though, is that we're tempted to get the ranking of these doctrines wrong. And one way we might do that is called fundamentalism, where we might take a personal conviction and make it like an essential of the faith, to take third-tier doctrines, even sometimes second-tier doctrines, and make them the definition of Christianity. That if you don't speak in tongues, then you're not a Christian. That would be a fundamentalist. That's making that center circle too big. It's adding too many doctrines to that center circle beyond what Scripture teaches. That's the most important thing, is what does Scripture teach? To demand that someone have a certain eschatological position, a certain understanding of the end times in order to be defined as a Christian or to be in fellowship with this church, is to misrank the doctrines, in my opinion, and to create a harshness and a hardness and requirements to the Christian faith that are actually not essential. And so we can mess up on that way. The other way that we see often in our culture is to take first order or core doctrines and shrink that and make it less, that you could call yourself a Christian or be in fellowship and deny certain essentials of the faith. For instance, if someone denies that Jesus rose literally from the dead, they can no longer call themselves a Christian. But certain liberal theologians would say that no, that's meant to be metaphorical, that's spiritual, let's be more inclusive. And so what that is that's shrinking the core and really redefining and eliminating Christianity. So both dangers are really severe. To add more to being a Christian than the Bible does is to deny Christianity. To take away essential things is to deny Christianity. And so that's really important that we keep the core zeroed in and protected, not taking away, not adding to that core. But the second order doctrines are really important because they protect often that center core. And so they're not unimportant. They are really critical, but we can't push someone in and out of Christianity based on that. But we might have to have different churches, different denominations, because those convictions do matter. They do protect the gospel. We have to land somewhere. And then we need to be very open-handed about our convictions. I like what one person said. We need to be rock solid at the core and soft on the edges. And we need to do that personally in terms of our relationships with each other, to not press our personal convictions that are really of lesser importance on other believers, while also realizing that there has to be certain boundaries to our fellowship because it protects the irreducible, unchangeable core that is central to our mission and our Christianity. So I hope that helps, especially as we study theology. A bunch of guys and I are doing that on Monday nights. Hope that helps you be able to do this as we go through our study. We're going to often ask that question. Okay, this doctrine, we've studied it. We understand what the scriptures teach about it. Now, where does it rank? A lot of our divisions within churches and even among one another is not so much that we have differences of opinion, but this, that we either hold one too strongly or press one too softly. And that's really where a lot of challenges within the Christian faith happens. So hope this is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching this. Bye.